Hola, mi gente. MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome back. Today, I am coming to give you all two book reviews, and those book reviews will be Soul Ties by Miss Candace and The Inmate by Frida McFadden. So let's just get right into it. So, like I said, we have two book reviews. We are going to start with Soul Ties by Miss Candace. I know some of you really love Frida McFadden. That will be coming at the end of the video. So, Soul Ties is a urban romance, and we have three protagonists. We start off with Sienna, who is a woman who has been in this long-term relationship with this Instagram model who he had some infidelity issues in the past, but he's supposedly working on the relationship and they're getting better. She is has been incapable of physically carrying a child, so that's struggles that they're working through. Overall, they're not having the best time in their relationship. It's good right now. Obviously, trust has been broken, but the big thing for her is she's also never had an orgasm with this man. And so she's sticking beside him and she's being faithful. But then at some point, a big surprise happens. She finds out information that they cannot come back from, and she decides to terminate the relationship. Now, toward the end of their relationship, she does receive an invitation on her car to some exclusive sex club. She doesn't know who it's from, and she's obviously not going to go because she's in a relationship. But once that relationship is null and void, she decides to go and pursue and see what this luxury exclusive sex club is talking about. And so at that moment, she meets one of our other characters, and that is Jihad. So Jihad is a man who has been married for a long time. He dabbles in both worlds, legal and illegal, as far as his business. But back in the day, when he was heavily into the streets, he wasn't faithful. He was living that lifestyle. But once he decided that he was going to get married, he has been committed and faithful to his wife, Leighton. Leighton is our third main character. And so Leighton, again, she's been having a hard time getting pregnant. She's finally pregnant, but she has been bedridden for most of this pregnancy. And she feels really guilty because Jihad is a very handsome man. Jihad is someone who enjoys sex, loves it. And she feels as if he's being deprived because she's not able to pleasure him. Because she's bedridden. She feels really guilty. She's been hounding him for months to take a hall pass. And Jihad's like, no, I don't want a hall pass. You're my wife. I don't want anyone but you. Eventually, with her pestering him about this every day, eventually Jihad decides, you know what? She not really doing nothing, not even physically, but she's kind of tapped out emotionally, nagging. It's not going well, and it hasn't been going well even before she got pregnant. So for the last couple of years, they've been struggling in their relationship. He finally takes her up on this hall pass, and his brother Saint is like, yo, you need to go to this sex club. I'm telling you, it's the place to be. And he's like, no, I would never do that. But hey, he's feeling vulnerable. He's fragile. He's human. And the one night he decides to take the hall pass and go to the sex club, who does he meet? Obviously, Sienna. And instantly, from the moment they meet, it is electricity, fireworks. He even tries to get away from her at one point because he's not sure if he really wants to be there. But listen, the chemistry does what the chemistry does. And then we have a story. So from there, we're watching how this one moment impacts the trajectory and lives of all of these main characters and where they go and what happens. What I really appreciated about this book was I really liked the dialogue, especially the dialogue between Sienna and Naoki. Naoki is her best friend. Thought that was so well written. All of the dialogue was honestly really good. I liked the storyline. I will say that I think this is a perfect story. And I say that in the sense that I wouldn't change anything about it. I wouldn't change any of the characters, wouldn't change the plot, wouldn't change the pacing. But I do not say it's a perfect book. The cons will come, but the story itself, so good. I like that at the very beginning of the book, there is an option where you can click a link and figure out what trigger warnings are included in the book. And the author gave that option because she didn't want to spoil it, right? She feels as if sometimes trigger warnings give away too much of the plot. And I really appreciated that you had that option. I didn't take it up, but I could see how it could be useful for folks. So yeah, but I liked her style of doing that. I also like that a lot of our characters are Haitian, so I love that at the very beginning she's like, here's some Haitian terms that you may not know, and here's the definition. And I even like that while we were reading, more often than not, they would say a term and then there would also be the English translation. I'm also very good with writers of other countries not doing translations and forcing us to do that legwork, but I thought that it was seamless and appreciated the incorporation here. I also felt like there was a lot of intrigue. I definitely wasn't bored. I wanted to know what was going to happen throughout, was invested in the characters, so I really appreciated that. I also, in my notes, I speak to something that'll come back up. Leighton's best friend was really kind of mean to Jihad the entire book. And I remember in my notes being like, which one of them does she have a crush on? Does she have a crush on Leighton or does she have a crush on Jihad? Because it's beyond being overprotective. She's doing too much. And I was right. I'm not going to tell y'all how it comes to be or how it all comes out. But in my notes, I'm like, oh, I knew it. So that comes up too. But yeah, overall, really enjoyed the book. Really like the pros were proing. But again, there are some cons. And so sometimes I don't agree with the direction that the characters, at least initially, but the way it all unfolded, I did appreciate it. But initially I was just like, oh, they're not happy. You shouldn't just stay with someone because you've been together for all these years. But that unfolds and the story progresses. And I think where everyone lands is perfect. I did feel like early on, and maybe that was me adjusting to her style of writing, I did feel like she would say the same thing multiple times in different ways. So I thought that sometimes the language or points being made could be a little repetitive and it wasn't necessary. Also, sometimes Sienna, I was like, girl, you didn't find that suspicious? Like, there were just sometimes clear signs and evidence like that in her face that I feel like she should have picked up on that she just didn't about what was happening. And that happened on more than one occasion with more than one person. But I liked Sienna. She was trying to figure it out. And what I mean is like her spiritual journey and where she was going and coming to terms with who she is and who she wants to be. And so I did enjoy that, even though I didn't always agree with her decision making. The only two other cons, one is that I feel like at some point the author was trying to make Leighton and Sienna foils for each other, and I didn't really feel like that was necessary. But again, as the story continued to evolve and grow, I think they both had their own blossoming, and I appreciated that. And lastly, I love the dialogue. Sometimes I just wish we had more of it. And in some places there was like a lot of just prose, and I was like, we need more dialogue here, or I would have preferred it. It was just a lot of internal thoughts. And sometimes I feel like we could have used more dialogue. But no big cons. Overall, loved the story. Like I said, really enjoyed reading the book. I also, after I finished it, immediately went and read the short story that she wrote. And that was so creative, even though I did have some issues with that. I thought that it was so creative in the sense that she's given us them meeting in a different multiverse. Like in every lifetime they would meet each other and they would have a love story, but it's different. And she plans to write one or two more. And I will read them. I'm also going to read Saint, which is the second book in the series about the brother. And if you haven't watched my April TBR list, check it out. I talk more about that book there. But yeah, loved it. Loved the book. Based on my scale of read now, read when you have time or read when you want, I would say this is a read now. I keep telling y'all are going to put respect on urban fiction. That's everybody, okay? Loved the book. Miss Candace has a fan in me. I'm going to continue to read. I know she has some other works that she's written. I'm going to go back and read those as well. So for me, and I really enjoyed the work, and y'all need to check it out as soon as you can. All right, so the next book that I read was The Inmate by Frida McFadden. Have been seeing Frida McFadden recommendations all over YouTube. And they're like, if you love thrillers, you need to read her. So I did. This is the first one I read. This story is about a young woman named Brooke who moves home after her parents are murdered, moves home to her small town with her son. And she's incapable of finding a job. The only place where she can get hired is at the men's penitentiary, Raker Penitentiary. I felt like that was too close to Rikers, but neither here nor there. Rikers Penitentiary, where the man who she testified against is in prison. We have a story. And so we deal with Brooke, who is our main character, being a nurse practitioner there, and what she has to go through with her characters. But also the big thing is, will she ever encounter this man who she has in prison for life? And she does. And so we deal with that. And of course, he's trying to convince her that he didn't do it. It's a thriller. Of course, we're trying to figure out who did it, who done it. What I liked about this book is that we got current times and we went back in time. And I think that those always made sense. The story flowed. It provided the right amount of information. It kept you intrigued. You were like, did he do it? Didn't he do it? At some point, I just reached a point where I made my decision. But little Brooke, she didn't. She went to the extreme with it. She couldn't make up her mind. She deals with the consequences therein. I like the way that Frida McFadden created tension. Even though eventually I reached a point where I had reached my own conclusion, I was always still a little bit like, was it him or was it him? Ooh, it could be him. Or maybe they were working together. So I love that. I love the thriller aspect of it. Really enjoyed reading it. Kept me on the edge of my seat. Also, I like the fact that this could be heavy, but it was written with comedic brevity. So things that could have been entirely too heavy were done well, and I just found it entertaining and the story flowed smoothly. My one big con is that sometimes I feel like Frida McFadden stated the obvious. And so there's just like lines that I've highlighted, but I think it would be giving you all too much of the plot. But I was like, girl, obviously, like Sherlock, we see that. So other than that, it was just certain issues that I had with characters. And sometimes I did feel as if getting to who done it took a long time. But I will say, because at one point I was like, I don't know if the readers got it right. I'm not sure if Frida McFadden is really doing a thing. But when I got to the end of this book and the conclusion definitely came out of left field, I was surprised and it was worth it. And I loved the psychological like ending of being the sins of the father being visited on the son. Listen, it was a lot to unpack, and that was a good ending to leave you like reflecting, and it really sat with you. So I really enjoyed this book. I didn't have a lot of cons. I see why folks love Frida McFadden. I'm going to give some of her other works a chance, and so that's an endorsement. Based on my scale of read now, read when you have time, read if you want. I'm going to say read it when you have time, but it was really good. I'm going to add it to my collection at some point. But I did enjoy it. I did enjoy The Inmate for sure. So have you all read any of these books? Let me know in the comments down below. That is it for me today. As always, I am MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. More book reviews and book chats and what I'm reading and wrap-ups will be coming. But until then, as always, please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the very best day of your life on purpose. Peace. Lo dabo. Adios. Ciao.